And welcome to the Redman Group, episode 88, special edition of Mystery Fun Show, we'll call it. So today I'm going to be your host, Anthony Dream Johnson. Donovan Sharp is still setting up his new studio. He's moved a couple times recently. His new studio should be the most biggest and badass of all, but he's had some issues getting set up. So it is what it is. We'll see Donovan again soon. Today, joining me on the show is, of course, Steve the Dean Williams at themanmindset.com. And new to the show, we have Evolve Phil. He's been on the show, the Patriarchs edition, a few times, as well as recently the live filming of the Redman Group episode, probably 84, 85, at the 21 Convention 2019 in Orlando, Florida. And it was awesome having him on there, having him at the event, and he'll be a speaker actually at the upcoming Patriarchs event, the Patriarch edition of the 21 Convention held later in 2020 in the spring. Returning to the show, we'll hear more from Phil in a second. And returning to the show, the grand return of DDJ, Doomsday Jesus, aka Bob Lewis, aka Miss Andrea Today. He's all over the place on YouTube and whatnot, and he's back to the show. He's one of our favorites, and you guys know him from the show. You guys have probably seen him a bunch of times now. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me back, obviously.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I've been bugging DDJ. I'm like, yo, dude, where you at, man? Where you at, bro? What you doing? What you doing? Yeah. So I wanted to kind of start this off just by talking with, especially, me and Steve are on the show all the time, and Steve has his own shows as well in the Redman Group. But Evolve, Phil, and DDJ, for their own reasons, are kind of new to this episode. So, Phil, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for the show, the guys who don't know anything about you and what you bring to the table?
So, my name's Phil, and what I bring to the table basically is just a perspective on. I'm a big proponent of traditional family, so to speak. So, been married for almost 11 years, raising a daughter in this crazy culture, so to speak, that we all have to live in, and just navigating that, and figuring out ways to keep from tripping and falling and keeping my family out of the potholes, so to speak, of society, feminism, feminist first and all that stuff, just trying to keep my daughter away from all that. So
feminism free, like gluten free.
Exactly. 100%. So, when you look at that situation right there, and like my daughter, she's 15 years old, and the amount of influence that's constantly bombarding her, so we highly limit her social media. We monitor everything as far as that goes, because the simple fact remains that, it's amazing how this mainstream feminism and, the non-traditional ways of being a human being, having natural hair color, not having piercings all over your body, not being covered in tattoos. It's just constantly in their face, So what we do with that is, with keeping her social media under control is we limit the time, and then we also limit the contact and who she's actually, speaking with on these social media platforms.
No, someone just popped in the chat. Glad to see Rich back. Rich Cooper looks like Evolve Phil. People have noticed.
Yeah. Times. Well, I told you, man, the transition went really well. He looks like a dude. So, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. That's good. But see, you guys got that shit backwards.
No, he looks like me.
Are you saying you yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. I said, Rich's transition went well. He looks almost like Phil, like almost like a dude.
Yeah, the craziest part about that whole, let me tell you guys a story. The first 21 Con event I went to, I met about 50 people, and they're like, oh man, you're such a great guy and whatever. And I'm like, well, that's nice to know, but my name's Phil, man. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah. I believe it. Dude, I looked at you in the hallway. I remember I was like, is that Rich? I'm like, oh no.
It's crazy.
And these days you're heavily involved too with the Fraternity of Excellence, Hunter Drew, Texas Dom, Craig James, and those guys, that whole crew.
Absolutely. I'm in the fraternity. I'm a lifer in that fraternity. As a matter of fact, I'm a big supporter of Hunter's work.
Yeah.
I've seen him really straighten a lot of men's lives out, and I've sponsored some guys, and I believe in what he's doing. He's the all-American family dad.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, and you've also been through. We went through on one of the Redman groups I was on with you, the fatherhood one. You've been through a pretty nasty divorce that you very successfully navigated, kind of like DDJ here has been through a couple of those himself, and that's unusual because most men, as we know, get hosed in divorce and family court. And maybe later in the show we'll get kind of the brief overcap of that.
Sure
You've also been another thing. I don't hear you talk about too much, but you've been an entrepreneur for a long time in your life, and you've kicked ass with that. I have all your hats, the Foster construction stuff and all that. I always get more from every time I go to the convention.
That's right.
Yeah.
So basically, I've been in business since '92.
Wow.
I've run 2 construction companies, both very successful, and I'm actually going to branch off into some other areas. That's why the structure is. I've renamed the structure. In this coming year, 2020, we're going to slowly migrate away from the construction industry and into some other fields, fitness, nutrition. We're going to work on possibly doing some supplement design and whatnot. So we're going to see how that plays out. But absolutely, I'm a big proponent of working for yourself as much as possible.
Yeah, it's a very masculine endeavor, man. 100%.
Absolutely.
DDJ, let's get you in here, man. You've been out for, we had the convention. That was the whole fucking thing. And then you've just been doing your own stuff out in Colorado. Tell us what you've had going on for the show.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm about to monologue. So here we go. Because there's a lot of information to share. So while I was out here in Colorado, one of the main things I've been doing is I've been focusing on kind of analyzing the Colorado legal system, trying to figure out how I can best make a positive masculine impact on the legal system. And in the process of doing that, I've involved myself in somewhere between about 6 and 10 different particular legal issues, which I'll get to in a second. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about my case against Google. So as everybody knows, Google and YouTube have recently changed their terms of service that are to take effect on December 10th. And one of the main terms of service that they're trying to change is that they want to make it so that they can basically ban accounts with no strikes for being what they refer to as not commercially viable. Now, that term, commercial viability, is not defined in the terms of service. So one of the things that we are working on is addressing that. So recently, we contacted Google and YouTube through their attorney, and we basically told them, I said, look, we're deeply concerned about this, and we think at some level that it's kind of retaliatory for my lawsuit against them. So we might end up filing either a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order to prevent Google from implementing that new terms of service. Because if they're allowed to implement it, you're going to see hundreds of thousands of channels go away off of YouTube overnight. And anybody
who's some big ones too, maybe like Molyneux's never been in the partner program. He's just hogging up bandwidth for them, I think, is what they might try to label it as, which is bullshit.
Well, right, but it's not just Molyneux. It's Styx Hexenhammer. It's Steven Crowder. There's a lot of different people, a lot of big voices that are going to be negatively impacted by this. So this is going to be a huge sort of endeavor. And I think that if we're allowed to do the temporary restraining order, we're allowed to bring forward that preliminary injunction and say, look, you can't do this. This is unconscionable and it's unethical. And more importantly, it violates your contract that you have with your content creators, who, by the way, are responsible for your success. If we're able to do that, that's going to be a huge win for everybody who uses this platform, myself included.
Now, why is this going to work at all? I mean, you're just like you're a paralegal. You're out in Colorado, like you're not in California. For the guys who don't know anything about the legal system, like why is this important and why is it going to have a potential serious impact on YouTube?
One of the main reasons it's going to have an impact, and that's kind of even though that seems like a somewhat complex question, there's a very verbose but necessary answer to that. And really what it is that anybody who uses social media, that's how we communicate today. You know, we use Facebook, we use Twitter, we use Gab, we use Minds, we use BitChute, we use YouTube, and we use those things to connect us to one another. And it's not just strangers across the country or across the world. We use these things to connect ourselves to our family. We use these things to connect ourselves to our employers, our coworkers, and as well as our politicians. So one of the things that's extremely important here is that when social media platforms are trying to shut down voices that they have promised us that they wouldn't do, that's really unconscionable, because even in Google's own internal documents, they've said that social media, big tech, in other words, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube specifically, as well as Google, they control online voices. They determine who gets seen and who doesn't. And there's a lot of drama that is there when they shut these voices down. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent everything that's going on as far as this masculine renaissance, the MAGA 2020 movement, this fight against the deep state now that they've admitted it exists.
Anything that doesn't fit in the mainstream narrative, basically, that doesn't fit in their approved opinion bullshit.
Exactly. And one of the main thrusts of my lawsuit is that Google and YouTube have never told their content creators and have never disclosed to their users that they will be censored on behalf of foreign governments. So if you're a United States citizen, if you reside on US soil, and for whatever reason, Google and YouTube censor you for hate speech, they're violating your civil rights, in part because they're doing it on behalf of foreign governments. They're doing it on behalf of the European Union. They're doing it on behalf of the People's Republic of China. They're doing it on behalf of all these different countries that don't have free speech protections. Now, I do see Graham Miller from the chat. He says that they should be considered a utility. Actually, I discussed this in one of my videos a while ago, and I specifically said that if you grant utility status to big tech, what you're doing is you're giving them a monopoly. And once you've given them a monopoly, you've given them everything they want. Basically, what you've done is you've confirmed that they are a legal monopoly. No, what we need to do is we need to hold big tech accountable.
Well, right now they kind of have a de facto monopoly, don't they? I mean, it's almost impossible to break into. Yeah. Well,
they do, but part of the reason that they do is because if you look at the Google website and you look at the YouTube website, what they've done in the last 5 to 10 years is they have started to control everybody else. So they have a news outreach, for example, a trusted news outreach, where they partner with major news agencies to control what's published. They have paid academics for over 400 pro-Google articles over the last 5 or 10 years to try to make it appear as though academia supports them, when really they're just being paid off pimps. In addition to that, they partner with a variety of nonprofit organizations where they not only fund these organizations, but they actually dispatch Google employees, full-time employees that Google pays for, to these organizations to work inside these organizations to control their policy from inside, to manipulate policy. The communists used to call this entryism when it was created by Trotsky back in the 1920s and 30s, which is exactly what big tech and corporate tech is doing today. We see them partnering with foreign governments. We see them partnering with socialist parties, with socialist outreach organizations. And all of these are propaganda engines to basically transform the United States into a socialist country and destroy our Constitution. Now, I know that seems a bit hyperbolic, but that is the reality of the situation. The United States is the only country in the world that has anything like our United States Constitution and our Bill of Rights. We have a right to bear arms. We have a right to freedom of speech. We have a right to due process. And so now you're seeing all these, exactly, and a right to assemble and a right to affiliate. So all those are encapsulated. Many of those things are encapsulated on the First Amendment, with the exception of course, our due process and our gun rights. But the most important piece is that Google and big tech are leading the charge on behalf of these foreign governments to destroy these rights and to minimize these rights. Yep. So the reason I bring all this up is because we've notified Google's attorneys that, look, if you're going to continue to implement this and you don't withdraw it, we are filing a preliminary injunction. Now, they're probably going to ignore it, but what's interesting is that we've got some pretty good legal basis to do it. There's an opportunity to do it. And frankly, we don't really care what the trial court says. Our goal is to get to the Court of Appeals. And the reason we want to get to the Court of Appeals is so that we can try to make case law. If we can get to
this, is my original question was kind of heading in this direction, because the average person, I think, hearing this, especially at least that follows us, is going to like what you're saying. But what comes to mind is, like, YouTube and Google are both billion-dollar companies, and they have enormous, legal teams and power. Like, why are you able to make headway with this?
Well, let me address that. And let me address that. So you would think that Google and YouTube, Google, I think they have like an entire building of attorneys that's under the direct employment of Google. They have an entire legal department. For some reason, when we filed this case, they did not use their legal department to fight us. they actually hired an outside attorney to deal with us, who had an office in, I want to say Denver or Boulder or something. But what was interesting about it is that when we filed our complaint, they actually needed close to 60 days to respond instead of the normal 20. And that tells me a couple things. That tells me that even though they had this huge amount of attorneys in this office complex in Mountain View, none of these people wargamed the type of arguments I'm bringing to the table. If you look at the PragerU lawsuit, or you look at the Laura Loomer lawsuit, or you look at any other lawsuit that's been filed by anybody who creates content on YouTube, like myself or Red Man Group or anybody else, no one has ever attempted to sue them on the basis of fraudulent contract. In fact, when PragerU went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, one of the appellate judges, she said, in 10 minutes into their 40-minute argument, she said, why didn't you sue them for breach of contract? Or why didn't you sue them for violating their contractual terms? And Prager's attorney had no answer. And the same thing is true with Laura Loomer. She went halfway there. She said, look, Google and YouTube are places of public accommodation, as defined by Packingham versus North Carolina, which is a 2017 Supreme Court decision. However, the problem was she didn't take it far enough, and she didn't attack the terms of service. And more importantly, and this is something that no one has done, is that I'm attacking the constitutionality of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And the reason that this is important is because if we don't have our freedom of speech rights online, we can't speak to any of these issues. So if anybody is sitting here and they want to discuss masculinity, if they want to discuss the problem with feminism, if they want to discuss pro-family, or they want to discuss specific dating strategies, well, congratulations, that doesn't fit the socialist narrative, and you're going to be censored. That's why this lawsuit is important. You don't necessarily have to agree with me as a man going his own way. In fact, you could vehemently disagree with me. You could be on the left, you can be on the right, but if you don't toe the big tech communist line, you will be censored. Anybody to the right of Stalin is going to be censored. And that's not, I'm serious. That's not hyperbolic. These people,
I think guys like Dave Rubin are an example of even, people who are former liberals or whatever, waking up to that stuff, that anyone to the right of Stalin is like all of a sudden the devil, basically.
Right. And that's my point. I mean, you look at Sargon of Akkad, he's a center leftist. He's a free speech advocate, but he's a center leftist. You look at Tim Pool. Tim Pool is the same thing. These people are to the right of Stalin, so therefore they have to be censored. If you look at Stefan Molyneux, while he's a conservative in some things, he's very liberal in many others because he's from Kanukistan. So I'm just saying, I mean, well, that's what Canada is, right? I mean, Canada finances terrorists. They've got a tranny for president or prime minister or whatever they call that bitch. Okay. Like, they've got all these issues here. And it's like, I mean, there's a reason the United States is the leader of the free world when it comes to free speech. There's a reason the United States is the leader of the free world when it comes to innovation. And it's because we don't mollycoddle cucks. We just don't do it. That's not where we've been. That's not the history of our country. So with that said, if you don't have a right to freedom of speech, there is no conversation to be had about masculinity. And let me tell you something. Yeah. This deplatforming has been taken off of the internet, and it's now impacting the real world. We are seeing organizations getting their events canceled because these Marxist, communist leftists are crying to the vendors, to the people who are holding the, hosting the events.
Dude, people think with the convention that I hide the venue because of whatever bullshit they want to cook up, but really it's just to avoid the venue getting harassed by these assholes that would call them and scream misogyny or whatever the fuck they want to yell at us about, all this bullshit. And the reality is, at the end of the day, I give the hotel managers the hats and shit. They're all about it, man. I give them the pink ones, the red ones, the black ones, like whatever the fuck.
Right.
But no, Molyneux in particular really has gotten harassed, and he's had speaking events canceled because of bomb threats and serious shit.
Right.
And that's why with the 21 convention, I have to hide that shit until the last minute, in which case it's like, all right, it is what it is.
Right. But I think that when we talk about that too, I mean, you're also seeing people like Ann Coulter, Mike Cernovich, many people on the far right and even center right, you're seeing a lot of their events in the real world canceled. You're seeing these people getting harassed in real life. And the reason that this is happening is because these socialists do not have any valid arguments in the marketplace of ideas to counter the message that these people are sending, the message that we're sending individually and collectively. And so they have to use censorship. They have to shut down anything that disagrees with their false bigoted narrative. And that's a reality. So this is why this lawsuit is extremely important. And it's interesting because all the people that normally talk about free speech and everything else, you notice how not a single one of them has talked about my lawsuit. You notice how not a single one of them has actually discussed it. I mean, if the lawsuit didn't have any credibility, at least people would like troll me or lambaste me or something. But they didn't do any of that. I mean, and the reason is because the lawsuit is serious. There's been an entire media blackout on the lawsuit, and people are totally scared of it because I'm challenging Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act.
21 Studios got your back, bro. 100%.
Oh yeah, and you always have. I mean, that's the thing. You guys have always had my back, even where we disagree. And you know, there's been a few people who have definitely supported it. So I'm saying that when it comes to that lawsuit, this free speech issue is a huge issue.
Yep.
Now, let me explain. Number one, why I've been gone for a while. But number two, this is a perfect example of why free speech is important. So I'm in Colorado, and I've been in Colorado now since I don't know, February, March for the most part. And one of the things that I've noticed here in Colorado is their elections are very interesting. So when they do an election for city council, or they do an election for governor, or for state senator, or for state rep, they actually have a traditional election. However, when it comes to their judges, they don't hold elections. And I think this might be unconstitutional under their own constitution, as well as under the federal constitution. So their judges, they're appointed by the governor, which that happens in many states. But once they're in office and election time comes up, all they do is say, do you want to keep this person, or do you want them to go away? They don't run against everybody. So like, say if Anthony was a judge in Colorado and I wanted to run against him, I can't launch a campaign to run against Anthony because they don't allow it. That's very socialist. It's very communist. Now, the other reason that it's very odd in Colorado is because they're magistrates, which in Washington state, they call them commissioners. In other states, they call them referees. They're not really a judge. They're like a judge with lesser power, and you can usually appeal their rulings to a judge if you don't like what they have to say, before you take it to the Court of Appeals, like a traditional court case. In Colorado, you're not allowed to appeal a magistrate ruling until the magistrate is done fucking you. And I'm serious. So if a magistrate retains jurisdiction, there's no way to appeal. There's no due process right to appeal. They can hold you for 18 months or 2 years or whatever. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I'm working with one of the guys on the Cash and Prizes team, and he found out that
we had a question about that earlier in the chat.
Right, and that's why I wanted to bring this full circle. He had his son physically abused by mom and mom's new husband. And we went to court to protect the child. And the court went off the record, made a bunch of rulings off the record in chambers, and never recorded any of them, violating this man's due process rights and preventing him from protecting his child. And this is a child where this is not a situation where this child was just making allegations and it was like dad's opinion. This child was making disclosures to his school. The child was making disclosures to medical professionals. The child made disclosures to a forensic psychologist. There's at least half a dozen well-documented disclosures. They even made disclosures to Child Protective Services. Now, the reason freedom of speech is so important in Colorado is because the mom not only works for an illegal immigration agency, she, in her capacity there, she's a director and she is a major DV queen in the Denver, Colorado area. And she's been doing this for 10 or 15 years. And she's been going out and crucifying men. And she's a child abuse perpetrator. And so she works for this. Yeah. And she works for this extremely well-connected illegal immigration advocacy firm who basically they're human traffickers of illegal aliens into our country. And what she does is she backdoors these people into the country through false allegations of domestic violence within the family court because she's a DV queen and she's the abuser. So they're doing everything in their power right now to protect this child abuse perpetrator because she's a DV queen attorney. And this is the fight that we're having. So we've had to go after the school district for civil rights violations. We had to file a civil rights complaint with the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. We see Child Protective Services circle the wagon. They assign an investigator who actually was friends with mom, which created a conflict of interest. And the investigator even documented the friendship with the perpetrator, as well as the child's disclosures, and then tried to say, oh, this is unfounded. And then on top of that, there's a police investigation, and the police haven't even assigned it to a detective yet, even though there's half a dozen credible disclosures. And again, this is to protect this illegal immigrant trafficker who works for a 501c3, a Democrat organization, who is a DV queen attorney. They're circling the wagons around here because of the corruption. And we've had two magistrates so far withdraw from the case. We're making a motion to recuse the judge because the judge has a relationship as well. This is all a very incestuous, very nepotistic, very corrupt system. And so as a result, we're looking at multiple federal lawsuits. We're looking at taking this to the Court of Appeals, and we're looking at doing a full court press. And the thing is that Colorado's never seen anything like the case we're fighting. They've never seen it. And the issue is that, I mean, not only is this person working on the cash and prizes team is a very important individual, but as far as the father is concerned, but on the same token, if this guy's going through it, how many other fathers are in the Colorado area who just get completely fucked by a magistrate like they tried to fuck this guy?
Yeah.
And hammer him on it. Now, just so we're clear too, before this happened, they were on a 50-50 custody arrangement with joint decision-making down the line. The problem that you have though is it now what's happening is that the director of the illegal immigration trafficking organization has now become the perpetrator's attorney. And we're concerned because of the 501c3 status of the organization that basically they're illegally using charitable funds for the personal benefit of a child abuse perpetrator. So this is a huge, huge issue. And this is another example of how when men go through divorce, how the system is stacked against them. Now, I can't necessarily say that's the case in a lot of red states, but I know it's the case from personal experience in the state of New York, in the state of Washington, in the state of Oregon, in the state of California, and now the state of Colorado. So I've been offline, buried in legal work, buried in legal research, looking up things on LexisNexis, which is the legal research engine you can subscribe to, working with multiple attorneys on all of these cases that are related to this and the civil rights issues that are there, because fathers need to be protected. Children need to be protected. And the thing is that if you're a legitimate child abuse perpetrator, I don't give a shit if you're male or female, you're fucking garbage of the earth. And at the end of the day, we have to be able to defend these men. And the thing that helps us, and again, this goes back to my conversation about Google. The thing that helps us, the only reason that we're able to wage this fight and carry the long-term fight, the only two reasons. One is that the biological father has the financial horsepower to fund everything we're doing. But the second reason, and more importantly, is that we have the Constitution on our side. We have the Colorado Constitution. We have the federal Constitution, because the due process protections that are there, they protect every American regardless. And when you see due process violations, you see constitutional violations in family court, you have to address them. And when you do, that's how things change. You know, I was actively practicing as a paralegal in Washington State when Troxel v. Granville from the United States Supreme Court came down in 2000, and it changed the way people treated parents. It told everybody that, look, parents have a 14th Amendment constitutional right to parent their children, not only free from government interference, but free from interference from any unnecessary third party. That is super, super powerful. And that came from family court. Now, today, it's an uphill fight. And it's an uphill fight because the judiciary system is an echo chamber in Denver because there's no legitimate elections. And it's an uphill fight because most of the newspaper outlets in the Denver area, they're leftists. So they're never going to publish the truth about a prominent DV queen who happens to be a child abuse perpetrator.
Well, since 2000, the culture has also gone increasingly clown world, like off a cliff.
Right.
I mean, in 2000, I remember being a kid then, and that was like pre 9/11, pre Patriot Act. I mean, America was a fundamentally different place, even though that was 19 years ago.
Right.
So shit's gotten wild, man. I think a lot of it's gonna taper out though. I mean, the internet has really amplified and expanded a lot of voices for better and for worse. So I'll see what happens.
Well, I think that, yeah, and I think that as what's happening right now in a fight for free speech is that every time these leftist big tech organizations, every time these leftist socialist news outlets try to censor, deplatform, or conceal leftist corruption, you're seeing free speech outlets be created. I mean, Gab, you see Minds, you see BitChute, you see, I think it's called Banned Video. There's a lot of different people who are creating platforms and creating places where we can get the news. If you look at like the Liberty Daily, which is the new Drudge Report, there's a lot of options now for people who want legitimate conservative news.
Even the Donald on Reddit's about to get banned, so they made their own website now, the Donald.win, and it's a powerful place, powerful site.
Exactly. And so now it's the advantage of these types of things is that now people who don't have voices anymore, they now have voices again. And these are options for people who actually want legitimate news as opposed to the Fox News Rhino broadcast. And actually, the one person says, Graham Miller says, Colorado swung to the left. It's actually that the thing about the mail-in ballot is that the mail-in ballot has been linked not only to reduce voter participation, but it's been linked to voter fraud. And unlike the 2016 election where they were trying to find instances of voter fraud because the Democrats were pretty corrupt, in this election cycle so far, they've found hundreds of thousands of illegals voting in Texas, in Colorado, in Florida, in all these different places, in some of these battleground areas, because the left is desperate to push this. And you'll find that most of these the auditors who do the voter counting, they're all card-carrying leftists. You got to get these people out of office. And frankly, we need a new McCarthyism to protect our country and to protect our Constitution. So with that said, my monologue is over. Now everybody knows where I've been, but I'll be making videos again next week.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I haven't seen anything new on Misandry today in a little while, but I haven't checked in. But I'll check it out. Fuck yeah. Steve, let's get you on, man. Let's get back down to some more practical advice for the men. How's it going, man? How's the show's been going? I've been super busy myself. I'm barely been able to tune in. I've been tweeting them though.
Yeah, same old same, man. Kicking it off. Special yet. Oh man, nothing special going on. Just same old same, brother.
Yeah, Donovan's been back with you probably till recently with his move, right?
Yeah, yeah. Right to his move. Yeah, we didn't do a show last night, but yeah, when he gets back on, we'll be kicking it off.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, the one red line you guys did the other week together was dope. That's sad. But seeing you guys together is really great, man. You guys are Bash Brothers, man. I mean, we need a white chocolate back too, man. Where's Bruno at, man? We gotta get him back.
Man, I don't even know where white chocolate is. I gotta check him out.
He's around, man. So guys, the other topic I wanted to dig into today, completely unrelated to free speech, I think, and lawsuits and all these other things, is sugar babies. I don't know if we've ever addressed sugar babies on the show before in any kind of serious detail, but I'm interested to talk about it from a number of different perspectives: cultural impact, impact on family, impact on the future, impact on men. I think there's a lot to it. One of the reasons it's on my mind is a few weeks ago, I got it into my head to recreate a sugar baby account or sugar daddy account again, which I do about once a year because it's so fucking it's like $100 a month almost. It's crazy. So I'm like, fuck this bullshit. And then like a year later, I'll just buy it again and it'll bag a bunch of sugar babies off it. And it's fucking great. I don't feel like I'm, it's funny because when I do it, I always feel like I'm eating a bunch of candy, like a bunch of like Halloween, you know what I mean? Like you eat too much candy and then you kind of feel like that's really what it's like, man. You do it so much. These girls, I mean, so for example, sugar baby sites versus other online dating apps and services and stuff, the girls tend to be by far the hottest, but they're also the biggest hoes. And then the other ones, you kind of get derivatives of that, different variations of those elements. But consistently, they're the biggest hoes and the hottest girls. And that's why they're on there. They're charging for the sexuality. Everything is extremely transactional. Most of them are very manipulative. Some of them, I think there's an element of honesty with it. I mean, they're very upfront. They want money to fuck, right? Or whatever the fuck they're going to do. In my case, though, I don't pay them. So there's a whole book on this too called Salty that one of our old attendees wrote. You can get it on Amazon. It's fucking great. And there's actually a lot of guys do this like me. They figured this out. And not a lot, but there's definitely guys like me on there that are young, and you can put your net worth at like $20 million if you want. And these girls believe it. Like, it's just nuts. All kinds of stupid shenanigans happen on these sites. But the sugar baby phenomenon itself, I think the more I've been doing it and banging these girls, I'm just like, you know, prostitution essentially is what these girls are. Even you don't pay them in my case, but the other dudes they meet up with, these dudes are fucking paying them cash. And there's news articles on this shit, and it's especially in Orlando, it's huge. Orlando is the first or second biggest city for it in America constantly. It goes back and forth with Atlanta, Georgia. I think because the universities are so big. And it's just nuts, man. Like, how long ago, or how it's with the rise of the internet, you know, and feminism along with it, we've seen basically soft prostitution become normalized for hundreds of thousands of American women. Like, I can't imagine in the 90s it was anywhere this easy to find a prostitute. Now you can find them all fucking day long. They're 20 years old. They're in college studying whatever the fuck, and they're out sucking dick for fucking $300 a pop. It's fucking wild, or whatever, even less or more, or whatever they do. So I kind of wanted to kind of go round table and see what you guys thought about this whole phenomena from whatever angle you wanted to take it. I mean, I'm having fun with it, and that's unusual, but you know, it's fun. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And I know from my perspective too, people would accuse me maybe of contributing to this phenomenon, this degeneracy, but the way I see it, these girls are gonna do it no matter what. And I'm like, you know, if they already fucked 45 guys, being number 46 is not my responsibility on them. Or I mean, that specific one is on me, but the previous 45 are not. So anybody who wants to kind of hop on that and give some thoughts on sugar dating and what you think, how it's affecting culture and affecting men, I'm all ears about it, and I'm pretty familiar with it myself.
Well, I'm fine with it. I like it. I'm going to tell you why I'm fine with it. And one thing I always try to tell the guys out there, that that's how the world has to be. There has to be those that get it for free and those that pay to keep the economy going. You just have to decide which street you're on. Prostitution has always been going on. Mm-hmm. Guys have always been buying dinners, buying these women drinks and things like that. So one can't get mad at a woman, because I always say women hunt guys down too, and that's what guys don't understand. Guys think that women are sugar and spice and everything nice, but they are really cold and calculated about what they want to do. They can get money from a guy without giving anything up after a while, because most of these guys put all their emotions in this game. And if a woman realizes that you're putting your emotions in there like she is, she's going to control the chessboard. So I'm fine with it, because we tell our guys and teach our guys not to give anything but dick and bubble gum. You know, we all like bubble gum, you know what I mean? So, but the economy has to see what a lot of young men don't understand. The economy has to keep going, and it is up to a certain amount of people to put money into that economy while others feed off of it, man.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that too. I mentioned that I bang these chicks, so I actually have a very specific kind of sales funnel I have to take these girls through. The first one is that when I do it, I have to lead in sexual, like super hardcore, because you're so far, in your life or in their life, you're just in a sales funnel for them. All these girls I see pretty much at the bars in Orlando, I'll literally spot them like from their profile. That's not a lot of them, but I see them consistently like that. And you definitely see them on Bumble and on Tinder, and these are the dating apps. So they have all these apps on their phone, and these apps are really just sales funnel for them to trade sexuality for dick, alpha seed, beta bucks, all this other bullshit. It's really amazing to see it in real time like that, and how fucking explicit it is. It's a real red pill. It's an eye-opening experience to even see that today. But also, when I say I bang these girls for free, there's only a certain category of them that I can really bang for free. And the other ones, and what that is the girl, I look for girls on there that you can see when they made their account. So I think it's kind of interesting for the guys watching. If you ever want to do this, it's worth trying, I think, in life at some point, is bang sugar babies for free. It's a fun sport. But basically, only the girls will bang you for free if they're new on the site. So I look for ones that have been on there for 6 months or less. And if I see they have an account from like 2018 or 2017 or whatever, these girls are pros. Or maybe they're not pros, maybe they're not like full-time, but they've done it for too long. They fucked too many guys. They've been through too much bullshit. They're not going to fall for it. They've had too many guys, maybe not even like me, but just guys flake on them and be fucking like legit assholes to the point of absurdity. like all kinds of screwy bullshit they go through. Guys, stupid shit. So I'm looking for girls on there that are young, that are new to it, and that are not like absolute fucking predator pros to suck money out of guys. Because the girls have been on there for a while, especially the girls who are also strippers and shit like that. They're fucking pros. And there's no point even fucking with them, because other than studying, sometimes I fuck with them to study the sales process. It's amazing the funnels they go through with these guys. They have whole like sales process they go through, bringing guys to meet in public for safety and shit, and like pancakes and shit, and like it's fucking weird what they do. It's really amazing, man. It's fucked up. But it's part of reality though, so I think it's fun to study.
I just want to say that there's a movie with Jennifer Lopez called The Hustle, I think it is.
Yeah.
Very good movie to watch for any guy out there to see how women play the game, because
right.
they do it, man.
Right. Let me kind of add my big towel perspective. So here's the thing. Women always have been the predators. They always have been. Okay. So this idea that, men will hunt, but women will give the sign that they're available. And so women are like the Venus flytrap, right? So the flies run around looking for something, and then the woman will be like, yeah, I'll snatch that up. And there it is. So women often will control the sexual market value, the sexual marketplace, with what they do and what they say. And so when you're talking about like the sugar baby thing, here's a little fact that most people don't know. Like 10%, I think it's like 5 to 10% of almost all the sugar babies that are in the United States, they're in the fucking top tier colleges. So the number one colleges in the state, 10% of those college women are specifically sugar babies. Now, that doesn't include the strippers. That doesn't include the escorts. That doesn't include these are the sugar babies. So what you're seeing is that while marriage is continuing to fail, and while family values are continuing to fail, you're seeing this massive rise in prostitution. And really, that's what sugar babies are. It's prostitution reframed. And before sugar babies took off, I remember 5-6 years ago, there were secret Facebook groups on how to be a dinner whore, how to be an escort, how to be a prostitute. And the reality is that I just read a study the other day that said that between 60 and 70% of all sex traffickers are women. So it's not this idea of all these men who were there. It's the fact that this is a market that has been for a long time driven by women. And the thing about it is that I agree, it's not going away. And until we see some fundamental shifts in how things are. But from my perspective, I guess my concern is twofold. One of them is the STD issue, which, obviously the number one way to avoid it is to don't be there. But, for those of us who are sexually active, you got to hit it and you got to take the chance sometime. And the second thing is the false accusations that happen when they find out that,
Oh, yeah.
or they get upset at you for some reason. Cause as well as I do, I've banged strippers, and I've banged women that are super power thoughts, and I'm not Chad, I'm just like a regular guy. But what happens is that when they get upset at you, they get hella spiteful. And especially if you dip out, you like say when the honeymoon phase ends and you stay around till the honeymoon phase ends and they flip the script on you, and now it's a fucking problem. So I always try to get to the point where the honeymoon phase is at the peak and then I'm gone. But and I agree with Steve completely that you should never pay a dime for these women, because under the right circumstances, they're all available for free. Yep. So this idea that, let
me add in there, literally they're out banging dudes for free on Tinder and a little bit Bumble, but Tinder and these other things in the bars, but then they go on seeking arrangement and it's all cash. So right. Yeah, they definitely bang for free. And it's just, that's what I'm doing as I'm kind of hacking that system. And that's what that book B-Rob wrote called Salty. That's what it talks about, is you're basically just kind of, you're building a wedge in their head, and then you're going into the direction you want rather than the funnel they want to put you into of cash. Correct. And they want to fuck hot guys anyway. So if you have game and you're put together, these girls meet me and they're always blown away. Just fucking, Chad Dream Thundercock, like, hey bitch, what's up? And they're not expecting that, because most of the guys I meet on there are old and fat and just gross. It is what it is. And then they meet me, I'm like, hey, I'm worth, $1 billion and I'm 31. Ha ha ha. And they just they just believe. I don't say billion, but they just believe anything you tell them. It's fucking
hysterical. Well, yeah, and that's the point, right? I mean, the point is that the easiest person to con is a liar. Yeah. So, and the thing about it is what these guys don't understand is that, listen, these sugar babies that are banging all these different dudes, they're graduating college and they're cosplaying as conservatives. And then they're turning around going, wife me up. Wife me up. Thought lives matter. Life me up.
Some of these girls are not even just studying stupid bullshit. I mean, some of them are not in college. A lot of them are. And not all of them are studying stupid bullshit like gender studies. Some of them are like nursing, teachers, all kinds of shit. These girls are going to go out and be fourth grade teachers in a couple of years to all these little kids and shit. And meanwhile, they basically spent their college years being hookers. And they don't like to call it that. But I mean, let me say this too before let's get Phil in here. So I've seen the sugar dating field evolve since 2016, late 2016. One of our fitness speakers actually told me about it. And I was very skeptical. I'm like, what is this bullshit? Like, why would I do this? I can just go bang girls anyway at like Tinder and bars and stuff. And he convinced me to give it a shot. And I was blown away at how hot the chicks were and how easy it was. But I have seen it evolve since then. And back then you saw a mixture of like girls wanting literally pay for a meet, like escorting. And then you saw a mixture of like, they actually wanted I guess you'd call it hysterically, a traditional sugar daddy relationship where you pay for like a phone bill or like a car bill or some bullshit, right? Or the rent or something. But now these girls are all just pay for meat. It's just devolved into this degenerate, absolute, literal prostitution thing. It's not even soft prostitution. It's just prostitution at this point. And most of them they'll say they want these traditional things. They don't care about that stuff. They just want the cash. Anyway, let's get Phil in here and get that going.
Yeah, I was just going to circle back around. You guys already touched on it a little bit. It's exactly right. These ladies, they're taking their higher level students in college and whatnot. But the big thing for me is in the 90s, early 90s, 80s, the internet, there was really no internet. So, as far as finding women like that, it was very, very difficult. You couldn't just go out like you can today and jump on a piece of ass and do what Anthony's doing and either trick them or yourself, or you're getting tricked by them. It's a big thing is just recognizing the game, and the big thing for me is, how is it affecting cultures? These high body counts, these women that are doing this now, in 10 years, they got 1,000 cock stare going on, and they're trying to pair bond with somebody. And it's just, that's just not going to work. You get this damaged goods situation. So you get all these nice guys that are trying to, get with these women. And basically what happens is, they get in this vicious circle of, oh man, I've got this great girl here. Let me provide. And she's so fucking damaged. She's so fucking smoked out between her legs that she can't pair bond. She can't fucking raise a family normally because, she has just been run through the motherfucking ringer, and personally, I think that, as raising a daughter, I'm extremely concerned, as far as, that goes with when she graduates high school and she moves off to college and it's the girlfriends.
Well, like Phil, look at Sugar Baby University. I pulled this up, and so it's directly relevant to what you're talking about. So Seeking Arrangement is, I think, the oldest or one of the oldest and certainly the most popular sugar dating site in the world. I mean, it's huge. It's available in like all these languages. It's got millions of users. And they actively promote Sugar Baby University as a method. It's just like a brand, I guess, but it's a method for getting these girls to literally, they're encouraging these girls to, female students to pay off their student loan debt for mostly bullshit degrees and whatever random bullshit they pick. I mean, it's literally encouraging girls to be prostitutes to pay off their school. Like, I see that shit. This is super explicit. Like,
yeah, and let me give a bitter red pill for everybody in the audience, including you, Phil.
Yo.
All right. So before Sugar Babies came out, I've done lots of family law in, from the mid 90s till now. Okay. I've seen just about every completely fucked up case you could see. All I do is focus on the super high conflict ones. So here's the thing. I knew a guy who he lived in a 6,000 square foot house. He lived in Sammamish. He had a boat. He had a couple kids, and he had a divorce, and it was a friendly divorce. It was a very amicable divorce. There was no divorce rape going on. And what ended up happening was that he couldn't account for some of the time that his daughter was not there. They went to church. This was a Christian family. But he couldn't account for certain time. The daughter would go spend time, go spend the night with her girlfriends at their house and that kind of thing. And then one day he was looking at her phone for something, and there was a video of her on her phone taken by her friends, and she was probably 14 and she was getting spit roasted. Okay. And he's like, what the fuck? And he was destroyed by it. And again, her friends were all like, oh, we're conservative. We go to church. They went to youth group. They did the whole fucking thing. But then on the down low, these girls are being indoctrinated at 12, 13, 14 years old. And they're doing this shit. Well, this was before these sugar baby sites. This was before all of this. What they were doing is these older girls were teaching these younger girls to go to the mall and to go to these shopping centers and troll for these older guys. I mean, what these guys were doing constituted child abuse. It's illegal in many of these places, but it didn't slow these women down and these girls down in any way. And the sad part about it is that there's so much negative messaging out there, and it's not just in the traditional places we think it is. It's now in the churches, thanks to feminist entryism. It's now in the conservative mindset. I mean, when these sugar babies hit the wall, when they realize that their sexual market value is going down, this is not only true with sugar babies, it's true with hypergamous divorcees. It's true with prostitutes and escorts and everybody else. They go to these churches specifically to wife up some guy to take care of them while everything goes down. And I agree with you 100% that once the woman's notch count gets to a certain point, she can no longer pair bond with a man. And then what makes her crazy is that she's trying to pair bond with the men that she's sleeping with, and she can't do it. And then she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand why this isn't working, even though this is what she wants to do. And it's like, look, they've done studies. There was a study at Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center in Seattle and Roosh talked about this many years ago. I've read the study, and it shows that women basically have sperm in their DNA, even if they don't have sons, because the common belief was that the male DNA gets transferred to the woman.
It gets stuck in their brain, actually.
Correct.
Yeah, it's weird, man. They're still doing research on it, but it looks like that's what's going to end up being the case. Yeah,
and the issue is that once they figured this out, they actually quit the research. They shut it down.
Yep.
Once they had the findings, because these women, they had no male sons, so the DNA wasn't transferred via utero, and they had never been, and some of these women had never been pregnant, but they still had male DNA incorporated in their system. Well, one of the things Roosh talked about back in the day before he got the God pill was that the DNA is being transferred through sex. And interestingly enough, that's exactly what the study said. They said that's one of the methods that got transferred in, is that basically these women are incorporating the male DNA.
Well, if I can pause here, DDJ, what that sounds like to me from an evolutionary basis is to help pair bonding stick long-term. The issue is, of course, they're just being promiscuous hoes left like endlessly, so it ends up being clusterfuck in the head. Probably where if there's a genetic cause for the 1,000 cocks there, it sounds like what's being.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the bio. Yeah,
there it is.
You're in their head. They're in their head literally forever.
Well, they're not. Yeah, they're not only literally forever. This is also probably what creates the alpha widow syndrome.
Exactly.
And on top of that, it's one of those scenarios where these women, they can't pair bond because again they're getting. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
what unique microchimerism.
Yeah, it's co-founding factors. It's the emotional experience of getting absolutely, dick slammed in your soul. And then on top of that, the biological elements of the sperm getting stuck, the DNA getting stuck in their fucking brain. That's a double whammy. And I don't know if I have any empathy for them, but it's understandable why they're getting alpha widowed and they're endlessly fucked up.
Well, the sympathy that I have.
What about Steve? We got Steve in here. So
Steve,
go ahead.
That's their Nate. Well, we gotta. Okay, me. I'm all about keeping things for what is and not what could be. Y'all, we gotta realize something. We always say the preacher's daughter's the whore. The one is the horse, the dirtiest one of them all. Anyway, see what a lot of guys don't realize is it has to be about the child, the daughter being grounded in herself, because what a lot of people don't understand is I always tell my guys, we get a new batch of women every year. Every year we get a new batch, fresh out of the box, girls that are legal, that are of age. But what you got to look at is that these of age girls have been held down by mommy and daddy. They have curfews and they have rules. They are finally getting out into the world where the number one, they let their hair down. They have no curfews and they can do whatever they want to do. And the fact that they've been dating high school boys who have no idea to touch her emotionally, mentally, physically, and then all these things. So you take all those combination of things, they're going to want to express themselves. I mean, see, we gotta be balanced here, because just like us, we want to go out there and smash everything out there as well. They will have that too. We're brought here at the end of the day, if you turn the lights out, to procreate. Now, I'm not saying what they're doing is right. I'm just saying what is. They just want to have sex. They love sex like we love sex. But for the one that is found, that is, I'm not saying every woman is a slut. I'm not saying that. But all women want to venture out as soon as they leave mommy and daddy's house of rules and all that other stuff.
Well, I think every woman has the capacity to be a slut for certain.
Yeah, I've been saying that for years. Yeah.
I think men have been saying that for probably thousands of years. I think we're not the first ones to figure that out. But these sugar dating sites, it's the combination then of technology and communication, and then the collapse of any kind of gender roles, traditionalism, any sense of common sense and dignity that they're just abandoning. I mean, these girls, they'll sell their soul for fucking $200 or even less. Like it's fucking nuts, man. And it bites them in the ass. They become miserable, the cat ladies, from it. Like, I can guarantee you 80 to 90% of these girls will end up divorced or never getting married in the first place, knocked up, single moms. I mean, every one of them is a shit show waiting to happen.
Well,
and there'll be exceptions, but
or they'll end up in a loveless relationship that they know they have to stay married, or else they're going to end up being poor and alone and cat ladies.
Yeah. Phil, you got some matter?
Yeah, it's just you guys already touched on it, but absolutely my thought on that is, as time progresses and as these young girls, the new batch, as Steve said, comes to fruition, and as I'm raising a young daughter, I try to talk to her about these things all the time. I talk to her about the human trafficking, what to look out for. I mean, don't be a fucking zebra on the prairie. You know what I mean? Don't get eaten by the fucking lions. You gotta recognize this shit. You know what I mean? And what's really going on, and that's where my brain goes, with it. As far as the high body count goes, people make poor decisions all the time. It's when you get saddled with that high body count as a man and you're married to that individual and you can't, then you're fucked, because the simple fact is, you get put through the ringer. You know what I mean? You go through the divorce proceedings and you're screwed. You know what I mean? So I think as how's it going to affect culture in the long-term future, I think there's going to be a whole lot more single moms than there is now. And there's a fuck ton of them, because I'm deal with the general public all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that more and more as time progresses, and as men's movements, and masculinity keep going, I mean, there's going to be some sort of clash eventually between, the state and the feminists and the masculine side of things. Absolutely. Because the simple fact still remains, as like as this website that you're putting up here promotes this for these girls to jump on and upgrade, seeking arrangements.
Sugar Baby University, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's startling to me. That's almost, this is incredible. It's incredible to me, but I just think as we go along, there's just going to be a lot more single moms.
Dude, they even have conferences, man. They have whole summits. They call it Sugar Baby Summit. They've been doing it for a couple of years now. I applied to be a speaker, but they rejected me, unfortunately. I was gonna give a whole surprise speech. I'll be a salt daddy. A salt daddy is a guy you pay him salt instead of sugar, so they get your cum, obviously. I was gonna give a speech on that and just get booed off the stage. I thought it would have been legendary. I was like, if I can pull this off, like if I can get if someone's not paying enough attention to me as who I am as a speaker, this would be the most hysterical shit ever. Like some stand-up shit, because I do it for real too. Like I'm pretty good at it. I'm not the best, but I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, you can't trick the trick, right?
Yeah. I wanted to add something to this too. The single moms. Yeah, I mean, single motherhood is definitely on the rise. On the flip side, though, single motherhood, I mean, single mothers notoriously and statistically, so not all of them, but a huge majority of them, their children have really fucked up problems. And this has been documented like really, really well. Single motherhood, I think, is like the worst. Being in a fatherless home, essentially, for a child is like the worst predictor possible that exists right now for a future life, the whole child's life just being fucked up. Prison time, problems with educational problems, learning problems, behavioral problems, drug abuse, divorce, likelihood of divorce, all kinds of really serious shit. These things go through the roof when you're raised without a father and in a single mother household. On the flip side, all these children typically come out, I think, a loose way to put it, they become super alpha chads who are unhinged and like they end up like that, or they become like super beta nice mama's boys. They're super unbalanced one way or the other. But what that does for us as the manosphere is it gives us a huge generation of men that are going to want to and need to become men, and they're going to look for guidance on that. And the best place to find that, and maybe the only place to find that, is the manosphere itself. All the content creators, all the guys on this panel, all the guys who've been on this panel, all these speakers that we work with. I think that's why there's a huge market opportunity, because there's a huge demand for that kind of education and that kind of content. And then on top of that, it's just going to be a good thing. So I think the country might have a very positive future if we can like tap into that and educate these boys that were raised very poorly by these single mothers who made very poor choices themselves, getting fucked on sugar dating websites and whatever the fuck else. So DDJ, did you want to hop in and rant?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that Phil brought up. Phil was bringing up the idea of talking to your children about trafficking. So it's interesting because, again, working in family law and working the worst cases, you really get to learn a lot about child trafficking. But what was interesting is the other day, and I posted this to my social media, and the other day I read an article from a woman who had been child trafficked. The interesting thing about it is that her traffickers got a hold of her before she was 18. And they groomed her for a year before they ever introduced her to her pimp. And again, this is a girl she was a cheerleader. She went to church. She did all the things. And they went after her, and they basically created these friendships with her. And they got her to the point where she wouldn't tell her parents about it or anything else. And then they just, turned her completely out. Right. And so she was saying she was going to I don't know. She said she'd end up banging like 20 to 30 guys a day sometimes.
Oh my God. What the fuck?
Oh yeah. 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 When I say turned out, that's an understatement.
That's like the Mexican prostitute thing going on. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the point, is that it's happening all over the country. So, that's why, I know Steve is talking about, these girls are perfectly legal when they're 18. They are, but I'll tell you what, they start before 18, and some of them at 18, 19, 20 are pretty sophisticated. So just be aware. But my point is that, when you're talking about human trafficking, you have to understand that these guys are in it for the long con. They're going after these high value women, these girls who they see as high value, to specifically turn them out. And then they end up getting them, to become strippers, to become cam whores, to become sugar babies and all the things. And they're trying to take money from them because, of course, they're pimping them out. So child trafficking has evolved a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. And a lot of it is older women, quote unquote, mentoring younger women. And what they're doing is they're setting these women up to be victimized and turned out.
Right. Okay. I agree with what you're saying. I say legally wise. I know
what you meant. I wasn't disagreeing with you.
No, it's all good. Since a girl, when she realizes she can control her daddy through crying, she starts to pick up that she can do certain things to control men at a young age. But what I want to ping on for something that Anthony was saying about these young boys who are raised by mom. One of the biggest issues that I have, and I guess one of my fights, your fight is with Google, DDJ. My fight is with that bullshit word hypergamy. That's my because
I saw that the other day. I was going to talk to you about that, but go on.
Here's my thing. If she moves up, moves left, moves right, or moves down, why do you give a fuck? Excuse my language, but that's what I'm saying. When these boys are learning just a word and they're basing their whole life off this word, I can't eat a sandwich because of hypergamy. I can't do this because of hypergamy. I can't wash my face because of hypergamy. I can't brush my teeth because of hypergamy. What happens is that they don't understand these women are watching the same videos that they're watching. And the thing about these women that makes them smart in the game, because these women know how to get money from guys using their sexuality, excuse me, what they will do is they will hunt down these guys and try to pretend that they're not a hypergamous woman or whatever that. I don't even believe in that.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm saying is that we got to teach these young men to look behind the curtain at the wizard that's promoting the words that they are following, because everybody, just because you write a book makes you an author doesn't mean you know anything about women. And the fact that you're just reading and pushing a narrative to these young impressionable men, women hunt that down. That's where I see the problem at. The guys don't want to be men. They don't want to accept rejection or failure. But as long as they got this hypergamy or whatever that bullshit word is as an excuse.
Did you say hypergamy?
Hypergamy.
That's a good. I like hypergamy. That's pretty good.
Well, because it's coming from a hoe. So you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they got to look at the goofball in the glasses. And I'm not doing that. I'm being real.
Right. But I think
for the record, guys, my hands are not on this murder weapon.
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with this rant. I love it though. I'm all about it. 2 thumbs up.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is this though. Hypergamy is real. It's in the dictionary. It was created in biology before this manosphere ever became a thing. However, I agree with you, Steve, 100% that just because hypergamy exists, men should not be insecure they shouldn't care about it, because they should understand it. It should be part of their dating strategy. If they're going to date, they should understand it, and then they should move the fuck on and go fuck who they're going to fuck. I totally get that, and I endorse that statement. Right. And I'm just saying that like what, but I think where people have a problem with hypergamy is not necessarily in the dating scene, it's in the long-term marriage scene.
Right.
And that's the challenge where it's there. And so I know, like for myself, like I don't care about hypergamy. I'm going to tell guys about it so they understand it. But you know what? I don't even break stride for it, because I'll tell you what, and this is for the guys that are out there, and this isn't about like long-term relationships or anything else. This is just like dating and fucking. There is no better time to be banging a woman when her hypergamy has driven her to you.
Right. But what I'm saying is that's why I push your last name, knowing who you are, you having a mission statement, a vision statement, a motto, laws, rules, principles.
Well, Steve, when I look at you even right now talking, I see the manmindset.com. I don't see the hypergamymindset.com.
Exactly. Because I'm it's not a cult, because I'm trying to teach people to be their own community and not be in a cult. But that's what I'm saying, guys. I want men to if you want to fuck, if you want a relationship, have one, but put these women through the ringer and find out what their value is. Stop looking for love and look for respect. And if she's not worthy of it, then you cut her ass off and move on. But these guys have got to learn themselves, and that's the problem. You can't learn yourself when you're following a goofy ass motherfucker that doesn't know anything about women, but he writes a few goddamn books. That's the problem.
Phil?
Yeah, and I'm here to tell you, it's kind of like what Steve, I want to just tail off of what Steve said that right there at the end. Put them through the fucking ringer, right? Women inherently still will slip through your fucking goddamn filter screen, so to speak. You know what I mean? They'll play nice for 2, 3, 4 years. I've seen it before, man, where they just fucking slide right on through. And then, so the big thing for me is, Steve is exactly right. Who gives a fuck if she swings to the left, to the right, up, down? Who cares? If you're not fucking happy with it, get the fuck out of here. Move on. And it doesn't matter if you're fucking married, if you're dating, if you're single. It doesn't fucking matter. If you're not winning, move the fuck on. Yeah. Move. Go. Let me pack your shit for you. Yeah. And that's just how it has to be.
Comply or goodbye.
Yeah. The big thing is I'm running my family in a certain manner right here. If you don't like it, I respect your position on not liking it, but I'm not going to sit here and warn with you about it. My house is a house of peace. There is no brain. There is no arguing. There is none of that shit but peace. If we can't have peace, you need to go. And that's just it. There's no other way around it.
Sounds like some positive patriarchy is what that sounds like to me. Oh no.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what comes to mind? DDJ. Let's get him back in. Something fucked up. Welcome back, DDJ.
Good. Yeah, no kidding. What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what comes to mind hearing everybody talk about hypergamy, this isn't something I usually focus on too much, but it sounds to me like hypergamy. Well, first of all, anything can be a crutch for a man. Anything. It can be hypergamy. It can be alcohol. It can be drugs. It can be porn. It can be a one-eyed girl you're obsessed with. It can be whatever the fuck, right?
Right.
And I think hypergamy for a lot of guys in the manosphere has become that. It is, it is a thing. It was created, like DDJ said, in the early 90s or whatever by someone sociological term to understand how women operate and date. And I think the manosphere has made some progress, the different communities, the different tribes, on kind of hashing that out and fleshing it out. But at the end of the day, it can still be a crutch, and you don't need to obsess with it. You need to be obsessed, I think, much more so with what the manosphere is really about, which is, yourself as a man, or yourself as a father, and yourself in terms of masculinity. The manosphere is called the manosphere. It's about men. It should be about men, boys, fathers, and masculinity, period. And then everything else that's a derivative of that, whether it's politics, whether it's marriage, whether it's family, whether it's dating, whether it's pickup, whether it's sport fucking sugar babies because you're bored. I mean, but the primary elements are men, boys, fathers, and masculinity. And I don't think that should be a controversial statement to say. I think it should be common sense given the title and the legacy of this community and how big it is now.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I will say this, though. Hypergamy was actually used in biology before the 90s, and it was actually a biologist that came up with it a long time ago. And they discussed it in the context of animals, not in the context of humans. And so this was behavior that was observed in mammals in the animal kingdom a long time ago. But I agree wholeheartedly, because this idea that guys who focus on female hypergamy, if you're focusing on female hypergamy, you are not focusing on your goals.
Yep.
And if you are not focusing on your goals, there's a problem. And it's interesting because when I first met Steve, one of the first streams we did together, Steve said something that I've talked about for many, many years. And this it's not common to Steve or necessarily common to me, but that's this. When you go out to improve yourself, when you go out and you focus on your own self-improvement and you focus on your goals and your mission, right? You focus on your mission. Women will make themselves available everywhere you go. You don't need to date online. You'll meet these women in the grocery store. You'll meet these women at work. You'll meet these women everywhere you go. They will fall over you and they will look for excuses to have conversations with you. That's why I tell these guys, look, women are hunters. They hunt. They, when a guy is on the hunt and they want to hunt, if they're ovulating and they're out for their quote unquote ladies night out, and they're available, they understand men are going to hunt for them there. But during the day, when you're out and about doing your thing, you're a successful man, women will talk to you and they will do this whole, I'm just trying to be friends with this guy. No, you're not. Come on now. Don't hate. We know what the real deal is. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I fucks with you, DD. That's why I fucks with you.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the reality, right? You got to focus on your game.
Right. But that's why I try to tell these young men, if you want to worry about hypergamy, then you need to worry about a mouse somewhere in the Amazon getting eaten by a snake. I mean, come on. What does that have to do with you? Stop using that as a crutch. But the problem is these young boys are looking for guidance. And a lot of these Agent Smiths, in the Matrix, the Agent Smith, or the Antichrist, if you're biblical, are sitting here trying to tell these guys, I'm your friend, but at the same time, indoctrinating them with bad information that when they get out into the world, what happens is the woman gobbles them up because of the bad information. And then DDJ, then they get mad at women. Then they hate women and all this other stuff because of the bad information. They need to look at the person that's giving the information. Because like you said the word came out in the 90s. I never heard of that. That's why when I heard the word, I'm like, what the fuck is that? But you know what I mean? It's like, well, a woman moving up. So what? And
right.
like Phil was saying, it's about me. Who cares? If you, like Phil said, harmony, right? Harmony. And if you can't give me harmony, you can move up, down, left, or right. Don't let the door hit you in the ass as you leave. But when a woman realizes you feel that way, she thinks twice. And the last thing I want to say, just because she moves up and marries and bees with somebody that's rich, who says she's not smashing the pool boy? Who says she's not being with the gardener? And who says she's not coming back for seconds from that guy who's an asshole.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They do round trips. They do recycle. Absolutely. They do.
Yep.
So, and the thing is that I agree with Steve that, look, hypergamy, if you look at a puzzle as 100%, hypergamy is probably at most 5% of what you should be focusing on. You need to be focusing on everything else you're doing in life. And, and I say this as a man going his own way. And obviously I'm a little bit older. But like I said, it's all about making sure you're focused on your mission. When you're focused on your psychological health, when you're focused on your social health, when you're focused on your financial health and your physical health, not necessarily in that order, women will make themselves available to you. And you don't have to hunt, because they will come to you. And when they come to you, that's when you're like, okay, now I can make a decision of what I want to do with it. And then you don't ever have to worry about it.
Well put. This has been a pretty fun discussion. Just kind of watching this go down, bounce around back and forth. Yeah. Well, guys, something else to add. I kind of want to wrap the show up today, kind of wind it down a little bit here, get some closing comments maybe. I know one thing I wanted to hit before we tapped out was there was a comment earlier back when we were talking about sugar babies more intensely. And that was the comment was discussing like how women like getting paid and they get turned on by it and stuff, specifically about how much they can actually get in the market. And from my experience, it's true. Seeing these women gun for, you could see the amount of money they try to get out of you. And even my ex-wife, who was more of a like official call girl escort kind of thing, there was no need for money when we were dating, when we were together. She was just doing this, I think, in a lot of ways, well, probably did many different reasons of trauma and whatever the fuck, personality disorder. But a lot of it just came to think validation from getting a certain amount of cash from men and trying to up that as a self-esteem booster, because the woman, whether they're on Instagram, these Instagram escorts or real life call girls or sugar babies, it's all kind of the same thing. And they see their value in terms of like literal US dollars going into their bank account, which is really fucked up and subhuman, but that's what they do. And so I think the comment about that from whoever it was in the comments, I don't know if it was Graham or I think it might've been Graham Miller, that guy. But in my experience, that's true. I think a lot of them they're so damaged and they're damaging themselves more and more and more with these decisions that they get in this endless like money train of like how much can they get, for their vagina. And it's fucking sick, man. But it's what they do. So yeah, I think the comment was correct. Phil, you're silent. You're muted. Oh, you're back now. You're back.
I said that carries over to marriage too, Anthony.
Okay.
And it doesn't even have to. They don't even have to be sugar babies, but I think there is an inherent feeling that they get. I got control with this guy over this guy with the golden uterus. The pussy. Yep. I can get what I want. It doesn't matter. And that's the thing is you got to learn to say no.
Yep.
No. No's your best fucking friend. No. Yep. You don't need it. No.
Big no. Hell no. No.
Negative.
You bring up the marriage thing. That's kind of interesting. I know I've seen MGTOWs and others, and I think there's merit to it, that they even view marriage as like this form, like long-term form of prostitution. And I don't necessarily agree with that to the T, but they're tapping into something real. And they said there's always a transaction between men and women. But I think marriage is a much more honest and very positive, much more healthy form of this. Men being a provider, women being stay-at-home moms and wives, and all these things. So I think that's a very healthy version of it. And to call that prostitution, I think is a bit of a stretch. But there is a transaction involved, and you can't deny that, especially if you're a breadwinner and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you live a traditional life, that's what we live. My wife stays at home.
Yeah.
She runs things. If she was a scrap woman and I was still provisioning for her, then I'm basically tricking myself. You know what I mean? She's pimping me or whatever, But if she's a quality woman and she's handling her business and running our home and our family is harmonious and things are great, and any provisioning she needs, I provide. Absolutely, it's transactional, but I don't consider it prostitution. That's my job as a man.
The idea here is it's mutual investment, right? So in a long-term marriage, in order to be successful, there has to be mutual investment of the woman to the man. And the reality is that if you're in a marriage and you think that the number one priority is sex, then you are completely misguided. Now, I'm not saying that sex isn't relevant. It absolutely is relevant, and it's important to be able to dick her down. But at the same token, she has to be able to bring more to the marriage than just her pussy. If she's not cleaning house, if she's a stay-at-home mom and she's not cleaning house, she's not taking care of the kids, she's not handling the domestic responsibilities while you're out at work 10, 12, 15, 16 hours a day, then you have to kick her to the curb. That's why I tell people, look, your relationship is over when the investment stops. It's not over when you part ways. This is not just true for romantic relationships. It's not just true for marriages. It's also true for friendships. It's true for business relationships and any aspect of your life. If you are not getting something positive out of the relationship, it is time to assess whether or not that relationship needs to go on.
Yeah, I just want guys, I'm going to say something to y'all guys that are listening that is going to shock y'all, but when you get on the other side of the street, y'all have never experienced women spending money on you. And for a lot of you guys out there, you never experienced a woman buying you gifts for Christmas and buying you roses and all that bullshit for Valentine's Day. Matter of fact, there's an article I just saw happen a few months ago. A man, because I'm going to squash hypergamy hopefully with this. He got 30 women to give him $2.1 million.
I remember that.
Right. So
savage.
So then where's the hypergamy at in this case? Because that shows that there are women out there that want men, the key word, MEN or MAN, excuse me.
It is eye-opening, Steve. I'd agree when women spend serious money on you. In my relationship with my ex-wife, who's a call girl, she would spend, I think, the majority of this money on me. Like, it was ridiculous. And over the years, it got worse and worse, I guess, as the cognitive dissonance or the guilt or whatever the fuck built up. She spent, I talked about this in the speech I gave on it a little bit, but I don't know if I highlighted enough. But yeah, that was my first time in my life where a woman had spent serious money on me for months and years, like just over, even though I'm like, yo, leave me alone. Like, I don't want anything. Just buying me flights and shit, all kinds of shit. It was nuts.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like, I remember when I got custody of my older two kids back in my 20s. Okay. And I was a single father. I was catching the bus to and from college because I went back to school. And I was dating a stripper. Okay. We weren't even monogamous. I was dating a stripper, but every time we got together, she bought everything. Yep. I didn't pay for shit. I mean, you know, and in 1992, 1993, she's spending $200 here, $200 there. I mean, the money was there. And of course I was putting in work to get it, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a labor of love, and love being the 4-letter word. Right. Just saying that, like, that shit's real.
Yeah. It's just how, see, at the end of the day, it's how you feel about yourself. And I have to keep going back, and how your mindset is. I always got to keep going back to it, because a lot of guys can't see what we're talking about right now. They think we're talking about a fairy tale, but no. Remember, women invest in men. They remember, I told you guys, if your pussy is tighter than hers, she's going to use you. Remember that.
Well put.
Well, and your name is Peggy.
Got it. All right, boys. I think we'll wrap up for today. It's been almost 90 minutes here. It's been a good show. Been a fun time. I think it's better we keep it under 90. I think it's a little more tight for the guys. It's a little easier to watch. So,
90's the perfect length. 2 hours is too long. 90's the length of a movie. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right, boys. I appreciate you hopping on today. I'm, of course, President Anthony Dream Johnson. You can find me at 21studios.com. We got Evolve Phil. He's on Twitter. We'll put his link in the description of the video. DDJ at MissAndreaToday.com. And, of course, Steve at TheManMindset.com. Tune in. I think this coming week will be a Patriarch show on a Thursday night at 8 p.m. with Hunter Drew, host. And you might see some other guys on there like Evolve Phil. I'm usually not on there, of course. I'm not dead. But probably see you guys next Saturday, 11 a.m., regular show time. We'll see you then with more exciting guest topics and fun shit to talk about. Appreciate it, guys, tuning in. Peace out.
Later.
Later.